Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now on Saturday in college basketball, there's another great Big 12 battle between the Baylor Bears traveling on the road to the TCU Horned Frogs. Who do I think is going to win this college basketball game? Let's break it down. Now Baylor's 17-6 and 6-4 in the Big 12 so far this season, and Scott Drew is one of the best head coaches in college basketball. He's done a great job with the Baylor Bears. When he got hired at Baylor all those years ago, Baylor was one of the worst teams in college basketball, but they were patient with him, and he's been able to build up Baylor over the years, and he's made him one of the best teams in college basketball, and they're having another great season this year. And some of their biggest results this season, Baylor did lose to Virginia 86-79 early on in the season in the non-conference, but then they were able to bounce back and beat UCLA 80-75. But then they lost at Marquette 96-70. That was a really tough loss. But then they beat Gonzaga 64-63, and that was a big win. So Baylor was going up and down on the results early on in the season. And then once Baylor entered Big 12 play, which is the toughest conference in college basketball right now, Baylor's had ups and downs as well. But they've been starting to play better basketball as of late. And they got a big win over Kansas 75-69, and that was a huge win. But they did lose at Texas 76-71, and that was a tough loss. But besides that loss, Baylor's been playing much better basketball as of late. And Scott Drew has Baylor playing at a high level right now. And Keontae George is a big reason why. He's averaging 17.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and 3.1 assists per game. He's playing great basketball this year. He's a freshman, and he's one of the top freshmen in college basketball this year. He was a 5-star recruit, and he's going to be a one and done, and he's having a great year for Baylor. Adam Flagler is averaging 15.1 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. He's a really great guard for Baylor. He has an NBA future as well, and he transferred into Baylor a couple seasons ago, and he's been playing great basketball for Scott Drew. And LJ Cryer rounds out the trio. He's averaging 14.3 points per game, 2.2 rebounds per game, and 2.1 assists per game. All three are fantastic guards for Baylor, and they make it extremely tough to beat the Bears, because when you have three solid guards, it is tough to stop them all. Jalen Bridges is averaging 10.1 points per game and 5.9 rebounds per game. He's been a good power forward for Baylor this season after transferring from West Virginia. And Langston Love's averaging 6.5 points per game and 2.2 rebounds per game. He still hasn't broken out for Baylor yet. He was a top recruit a couple years ago, but he is starting to play better basketball. And Baylor also just got Jonathan Chama back, and he had 8 points and 4 rebounds in their win over Texas Tech. And his return is huge for Baylor because he's a great defender, and he plays really hard. And Baylor also has Flo Thamba, so now they'll be able to rotate Jonathan Chama and Flo Thamba at the center position, and that's just going to add to Baylor's depth and make them an even more talented team. And Baylor on offense is scoring 78.9 points per game, and on defense they're only giving up 69 points per game. Baylor's been a great offensive team this year, and they've gotten better and better as the season's gone along. At the beginning of the season they were kind of struggling on offense, but they've really gotten it together with their trio of guards that are fantastic, and their defense has really stepped up as Big 12 play's gone along. And when you're a team that's really good on offense and really solid on defense, it really makes you one of the best teams in college basketball. Now on the TCU side, they're 17-7 and 6-5 in the Big 12 this season, and Jamie Dixon, he's done a fantastic job as the TCU head coach. After coming over from being the Pittsburgh head coach, he has been great for TCU, and he's exactly what the program has needed. They've been struggling as a basketball program for so long, but now Jamie Dixon has a very competitive team in the Big 12, and they're having a great season this year. And some of TCU's biggest results this year, they beat Iowa 79-66 in the non-conference. That was a really good win. Then they beat Providence 75-62, and that was a huge win for TCU as well. Providence has been one of the best teams in the Big East this year, and both those wins helped erase a 64-63 loss to Northwestern State in the non-conference that TCU suffered, but they did not have Mike Miles in that game. And then TCU, once they entered Big 12 play, they beat Baylor on the road 88-87, and that was a huge win. It will be tough for them to get the sweep of Baylor in this game, but TCU getting that win on the road was huge. Then TCU lost at Texas 79-75. That was a tough loss. And then TCU beat Kansas 83-60 at Kansas. That was their best win of the year. But then TCU lost at Kansas State 82-61 in their last game. And TCU, they've been having a great season this year, but Mike Miles, their star guard, has been out the past few games. He got hurt in the Mississippi State game, and TCU lost that game as well. And ever since he's been out, TCU's been really struggling. They were only able to get a win over West Virginia at home. But if they don't get Mike Miles back, then TCU's going to really keep sliding down the Big 12 standings. They're a great team, but without Mike Miles, their ceiling is definitely limited. And Eddie Lampkin, a really good center for TCU, has also been out the past couple games. He's been banged up, and it would be really big for TCU if they could get both players back for this game against Baylor, but I'm not sure if they will. But Emmanuel Emmanuel Miller is averaging 13 points per game and 6.5 rebounds per game. He's been really solid for TCU this season. He's one of their better players, and he's taken a big step up from last year. Damian Ball is averaging 13 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, and 5.2 assists per game. He's a great player. He plays really well alongside Mike Miles, but now that Mike Miles is out, Damian Ball is having to take on a bigger scoring role, and at times he's really delivered that, but still it hasn't really been enough for TCU to get wins, but he is a great player. Jacoby Coles is averaging 8.3 points per game and 4.1 rebounds per game. He's been a solid player for TCU this year. Micah Peavy's averaging 7.6 points per game and 3.2 rebounds per game, and Chuck O'Bannon's averaging 7.5 points per game and 3.4 rebounds per game. And TCU has a plethora of players that really contribute at a high level, but without Mike Miles, TCU just does not have that go-to player right now. Like I said, Damian Ball and a few others have really tried to step up in Mike Miles' absence, but their depth is really thin right now, and they don't have that go-to player. If TCU can weather the storm and keep winning a few games until Mike Miles returns, and then when he comes back, TCU could still be a really dangerous team this year. And TCU's averaging 76.6 points per game on offense, and on defense, they're only giving up 66.6 points per game. And TCU's offense was fantastic all year, but since Mike Miles has been out, their offense has struggled at times in their past few games. But their offense, when they're healthy, is one of the best in college basketball. And on the defensive side of the ball, TCU has made a major step up from where they were on defense last year. They have a great defensive team, and they play with a lot of heart and hustle, and that is a recipe for success, especially when you're playing in the rugged Big 12. Now, who do I think is going to win this Big 12 clash? Baylor is a team that's been playing much better basketball as of late, and they've even been able to get big wins on the road. Scott Drew, he's one of the most experienced head coaches in college basketball, and he's had so much success at Baylor, and he's had Baylor as one of the top teams in the Big 12 the past few seasons. And Baylor, even though they were struggling at the beginning of the season and they were losing a lot of games, after they fell out of the top 25 and they were only 10-5, they've been playing much better basketball, and now they're 17-6, and they've won 7 of their last 8 games. And now that they got Jonathan Chama back to pair him along with Flo Thamba, and they have their trio of guards in Keontae George, Adam Flagler, and LJ Cryer, that's going to be really tough for TCU to stop. Baylor's been playing much better defense lately, and their offense is clicking on all cylinders right now. And TCU is a tough place to play. Their home environment has been rocking this year, especially because TCU's been a great team, and Jamie Dixon is a fantastic head coach. He did a really good job at Pittsburgh, and ever since coming over to TCU, he's made them a better and better program. And he has the Horned Frogs playing some of their best basketball that they ever have in their whole history of college basketball. But without Mike Miles, it's going to be really tough for TCU to win this game. I think that Emmanuel Miller is a really solid player, and I think that Damian Ball has done everything he's possibly can to fill in and be the go-to scorer for TCU without Mike Miles. But even with Eddie Lampkin out as well, that's really hurting TCU's depth at center. And I think that if both players are out, it's going to be really tough for TCU to win this game. I think they still can win this game without him because they have a lot of players that play with a lot of fight, and they are playing really hard this season in the Big 12, and the home environment will really help out the TCU Horned Frogs. But I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears to beat the TCU Horned Frogs 74-70 in this Big 12 battle. I think TCU can win this game. I think their defense is really going to be able to slow down Baylor's offense to an extent, and I think that TCU's offense still has really good players, even without Mike Miles and Eddie Lampkin. And if both players are able to return in this game, it will really give them a great shot to win. But even if they do return, they'll probably be a bit rusty from missing a few games, and it's more likely than not that they won't be available in this game. So TCU's depth will be tested against Baylor's depth. Baylor has a lot of great players, and they're getting healthy, whereas TCU is not healthy right now. If TCU was playing Baylor a few weeks ago and Baylor was really struggling and TCU was healthy, then there's a much better chance that TCU would win this game. But Baylor's a healthy team right now. They've been playing great basketball, and Scott Drew has the Baylor Bears playing at a high level right now, and TCU has a lot of injuries. And I think that Jamie Dixon still has his team focused, and they're going to play really hard in this game. And I think this is going to be a close, hard-fought game in the Big 12. But I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears to beat the TCU Horned Frogs 74-70 in this Big 12 battle. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Baylor or TCU is going to win this basketball game and why. And I will see you next time.